first of all, who am I? I'm Giles, sorry, I started the CloudStack European User Group 12 years ago. So I'm the founder and self-appointed chairman of the CloudStack European User Group. And this has just been an informal thing that we've kept going for all those years. We used to have quarterly meetups. It's moved to sort of every 6 months now, lots of different European cities. My sort of background, I'm a committer and PMC member of the CloudStack project, as well as doing this. And in my spare time, I run a company called Shape Blue. We focus on Apache CloudStack. And outside of work, I'm a physicist. I used to be a software engineer many years ago, a sailor and a hiker. And that is a survival suit I'm in, I'm just me dressed for a Monday morning at work. Okay, so the aims of this group, collaborative environment, right? I guess everybody in the room has some sort of interest in Apache CloudStack. You're either running it, we've got developers in the room, we've got people who are evaluating it, people who have just sort of heard about the technology and want to come along and learn a little bit more. So this is a sort of anything goes. We've got 8 talks today, but we have talks from vendors who integrate with CloudStack, from people who are using CloudStack, people sharing ideas, proposals that they might want to do in the open source community. Just in terms of where this group sits, the European User Group, there are other user groups dotted around the world. There's one in the US, there's an India user group, and these aren't officially part of the Apache Software Foundation. They're just something that some of us have organized over the years. As a project, Apache sits as a foundation underneath everything we do, and then our community, our developer community, is governed by the ASF. Okay, so whenever we release code, the way we work, the way we interact with other people in the community is all governed by the ASF. But these user groups sort of sit on the side. Okay, we have another thing that sits on the side, which is the CloudStack Collaboration Conference, which is the main annual event, global event for CloudStack. That was in Madrid in November last year. It's in Milan at the end of November this year. I haven't actually got a slide on this. I suppose I should have one, really. CloudStackCollab.org for the details. Tickets are on sale now, and the CFP is open if anybody wants to submit a talk for that. These things cost money to organise, so Shape Blue, my company, Limbit and Pro.io have all very kindly put some money in to allow us to rent the room, to have some lunch and hopefully have a few drinks this evening. I would like to give all the 3 of those companies a round of applause if nobody minds. Thank you very much, guys. So we've got a busy agenda today. We've got 8 different talks. I'm going to do a talk on some sort of overview of CloudStack and just some of the stuff that's come in recent releases and some of the stuff that's coming up in upcoming releases. Renee from Limbit is going to be talking about setting up their storage provider in CloudStack. Brian, I'd like to resell your CloudStack services, but I don't know what the but is. I'm excited to know what the but is. We'll see what Brian's but looks like. Okay, fully open source private clouds by Sven. Where are you, Sven? There he is, hiding at the back. Just notice with the talks, we've got sort of 10 minutes in between each one, so there's lots of time to grab a coffee, chat to different people, ask the speakers about what they've just been talking about, that sort of thing. An hour for lunch. This afternoon, Francesco is talking about, where are you, Francesco? There he is. Come all the way from Madrid this morning. He's going to be talking about CloudStack and KVM, your local cloud lab. A feature proposal from Gregoire, who's just snuck in at the back. I can see him. You're doing a feature. Lucky you're talking this afternoon, Gregoire. Stretching CloudStack over multiple data centers. Guido, who is here, also hiding at the back. And then Bobby is doing a talk about scalability limits in CloudStack, pushing the boundaries of scalability. There's Bobby. He's also the camera operator today. Okay, the most important slide of the day is coming. I don't need to explain any more than that. That's where we need to be, and that's what will happen. Thanks to our sponsors, we won't have to pay for that ourselves. I think Yvette had sent out an email with the details of that on, and the idea is, I think when we finish at about 4:15, 4:30, we'll just all wander over. It's about a 10-minute walk, I'm told. Okay, quick show of hands. Who is sort of new to CloudStack? Because you've just heard about it, you're evaluating it, you're having a look. Yeah, okay. that's half the room, okay? So it's one of the things with these sort of intro talks is difficult to get right because we're a community, a lot of us come back time and time again, and we often dive straight into some sort of proposals for features and that sort of stuff. So actually I thought I'd do I knew there'd be some people who were new here, a very quick 101 on Apache CloudStack. So for the other 50% of you, you've got 10 minutes now just to do some emails because you've probably heard this before. So I'm just going to start with a very quick 10-minute CloudStack 101, and then I'll move on and look at some of the features that have been in recent releases. So Apache CloudStack, I'm going to read this, is a scalable, multi-tenant, open-source, purpose-built cloud orchestration platform for delivering turnkey infrastructure as a service clouds. Okay, it's an IaaS platform. I mean, the important things in that sentence I'm going to highlight there. Okay, scalable. Bobby's doing a talk later about scaling up to 25,000 hosts. That's the sort of scale some people are running Apache Clouds or looking to run Apache CloudStack to. It's multi-tenant. CloudStack was designed as multi-tenant from the ground up. Its initial proposition was as a IaaS platform for service providers, although over the last decade or so, we've seen a lot of non-service providers start to use Apache CloudStack. It's open source. And I think this is probably the most important thing here. It's truly open source. It's an Apache project. This is not open washing from a vendor. This is an Apache community. And those of you involved in any other Apache projects will know Apache creates these long-term organic pieces of software, right? Web server, for example, Hadoop, for example. And that's because of its governance model. It stops companies and vendors coming in and taking the project in crazy directions. You can't pay to play in an Apache project. And that's really, really important. That's why CloudStack has had such a long life and will continue to have an even longer life. Cloud orchestration platform. And then we could also talk about turnkey. CloudStack is a product. You install it. It's a management server. It's not a series of interconnected components. In terms of what it's there and what it does, I've been doing this diagram for 12 years, and I saw this at AWS. It wasn't even, they didn't even call it a summit. It was an AWS Cloud Day in, God knows when that was, when I was much, much younger and had more hair. And they were talking about EC2, this new product they'd got, right? And this is how they showed it. They said, you know, we've got networking, storage, compute. We put a hypervisor over the top. We built an orchestration layer with an API. Amazon already had an e-commerce platform, right? Because they were selling books and stuff at the time. And that's what the initial design objectives of CloudStack were. They say, okay, so somebody's got network, storage, compute. They put in their hypervisor of choice. And it's one of the key things with CloudStack. It's hypervisor agnostic. It supports a range of hypervisors. CloudStack is that layer. It has an API. What CloudStack doesn't have and never has had is its own sort of e-commerce platform, okay? So its scope is quite tightly limited, and there's other vendors who sit and do that piece, or a lot of people do their own work on top of that. It has a very pretty UI, and then over the years it's layered in things like the Kubernetes service, its own CLI. We've now got other ways of accessing CloudStack from Kubernetes using CAPC, which is a CAPI provider for Apache CloudStack, or Amazon EKS Anywhere. They support Apache CloudStack. Loads of integrations to tools like Terraform and that sort of thing, multi-cloud management tools. So that's where CloudStack sits in the grand scheme of things. That's sort of feature highlights, if you like. Okay, broad range of hypervisor support, supports Kubernetes, very scalable. It's got its own implicit high availability models when you're using hypervisors like KVM, for example, to give you the sort of functionality people are used to getting from VMware. And that's quite an important thing right now with what's going on in the world. Its own virtual networking model and a choice of interfaces. How's the 50% emails going? You need a bit more time? Okay, why CloudStack over competition? It's a product. You install it. It's a management server, or normally a pair or 3 management servers, and off it goes. It is proven at scale, widely adopted, very relative to other platforms, relatively fast and easy and cheap to deploy, and therefore lower costs. The community is great. It says focus there. It's a relatively small community, right? You know, the CloudStack community is hundreds of people. not tens of thousands like Kubernetes or that sort of thing. But that has its advantages, right? You're in a room like this. I know there's at least half a dozen committers from the project in this room. So if anybody's interested or got problems with CloudStack, you can plumb into people very, very quickly with a smaller community. The use cases, well, this was always the diagram. Well, it started initially years ago. We used to say private cloud, hybrid cloud, public cloud. Then Edge came along as a CloudStack. So there's some stuff in as a concept. There's some stuff in CloudStack to support the Edge use case. But I've sort of seen this new use case in the last 12 months, which is almost spinning it around, right? It's not people who want a cloud platform, it's people who want to change their virtualization layer and are looking for something that can give them tooling on top of KVM, can give them things like HA, things like DRS. I think you all know the situation I'm talking about has changed in the virtualization market in the last couple of years. And there is a clear use case now with CloudStack with people who probably aren't that interested in its multi-tenancy, its self-service and that sort of stuff. They just see it as a tool they can use to manage KVM in their data centers. In terms of who's using CloudStack, lots of very exciting organizations, long-term users of Apache CloudStack. But of course, as an Apache project, we don't track usage. This is almost anecdotal, a lot of this. A lot of these people turn up and speak at conferences and that sort of thing. And actually, in the last year, we've seen a whole load of new users adopt CloudStack. And this is all going on because of the Broadcom VMware thing, right? That's what's accelerated things greatly. They're people I know about just in the last year. And because we are an Apache project, we do have this situation that we also have quite a few high-profile users who are not public about the, and that's fair enough. It's an Apache project, it's open source, they can take it and do what they want. They don't have to declare themselves as users of this technology. But well-established, widespread production usage. And we've got a really lovely community. We're here today. We're an extension of that community. User-driven community. We haven't got any big software vendors driving CloudStack. It's mainly the people who use the software and around 300 committers. I don't know what anybody know what the actual number is now? I've been saying 300 for a couple of years, but it's crept up a little bit. Okay. And it's a super active community. Okay, we're doing, especially at the moment, the community is very, very busy. Just to give, again, sort of part of the 101, some metrics. This is commits into the CloudStack repo in GitHub per month. Okay, you see I don't know if I took an average there, about 60 a month. It's not a massive community, but it's active. Okay, and you see some spikes going on around releases and that sort of thing. In terms of who's using, number of people using the software, that's our package downloads count. And that was, this was as of the end of 2024. I couldn't be bothered to pull the data again just for the last few months, but you get an idea of the growth. We've got nearly 350,000 people downloading the CloudStack packages in a 12-month period. Other metrics. Stars on GitHub have gone up. I'm just trying to show we're a busy, active community. We're not the biggest, but we're out there doing a lot of stuff. I won't go into all of this. Number of mailing list messages a month, averaging at about 300. The point I could show here is where we're getting a big growth starting at the beginning of 2024. Anybody happen to know what happened in the beginning of 2024? Yeah, so one big company bought a virtualization platform, and we saw all this stuff happening. And actually, there it is, beginning of 2024. That's our users' mailing list, the line, which is where people come when they're new to CloudStack. It's where they come and ask for help. And you see this just jumping up crazy in the beginning of 2024. Okay, that's the 101. Those of you who are doing your emails can tune back in now if you want. Releases, I suppose this is part of the thing of how busy we've been as a community. That's a summary. That's not all of the releases. I think I've cut some of the security releases out of there just over the last, little bit more about the last 14 months. The current production versions of CloudStack, 490. So when we do an LTS as a community, a long-term support release, the community says we'll support that for 18 months. Okay, so 419, which was released in February of last year, is still a current release. It won't EOL for another few months yet. 4.20, which came out at the end of last year, has got whatever that is, about a year left. And 4.21, the reason I talk about it here, is a release manager is appointed in the community, and I don't know when they're talking about code freeze in a month or so for that. So that will be out in this summer. The reason I'm talking about this, I'm going to talk about some new features in CloudStack, and I'm actually going to be pulling features from all three of those actual releases, because 4.9, actually show of hands, those of you who are running CloudStack, who is running 4.19 at the moment? I've got 10, 4.20, fewer, and nobody's running 4.21 yet because it's not released. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some of the new functionality, but I'm going to pull it from I'm going to go through skim through three different versions. And in between the LTS releases, we've obviously got maintenance releases, which are part of the LTS branch for each one, and then a lot of security releases. One of the things about a lot more enterprisey government organizations starting to use CloudStack, which has happened over the last year, 18 months, is there's a lot more security people looking at CloudStack, a lot more pen testing going on, and therefore a lot more security releases. Okay, we used to do about one security release a year, and you can see how many are going on at the moment. All right, let's look at some new functionality. I'm going to start with 4.19, and this is, I think there was something like 30 new headline features. I have literally just picked out the 5 that I think are most significant and most interesting. I'm just going to talk everybody through that. And again, some of you in the room have probably heard me say this already. I talked about this at a previous event. Okay, the timing was perfect because the first thing, and this was already this was actually already in progress before the Broadcom thing happened, because you look at the release date of 4.19, it was already there, because there was a general movement of people towards KVM and other hypervisors already. So this was a long overdue thing in CloudStack, and it dropped at about the time the whole Broadcom news broke with VMware. It is a perfect timing. So CloudStack has the ability to do a KVM, sorry, a VMware to KVM migration. It's always supported VMware as a hypervisor. It integrates with VMware through vCenter. And we still have people who are running CloudStack in production with VMware behind it. Okay. Now, for quite a few years, you've been able to ingest into CloudStack from an existing vCenter. So you can point CloudStack at the vCenter and say, go and manage that vCenter for me now. Okay, that was already in place. What you can now do is do that first step and then convert those VMware VMs into KVM VMs, CloudStack instances. Sorry, long slide, lots of details. There's a menu command, import, export instances. It imports VMware instances, including disks, networks, configurations. It can only be run by the admin. There's been some interesting discussions about whether this could become a user tool, but it opens up all sorts of security questions. So you can take existing CloudStack VMware instances or just point it to a new vCenter. It will go and catalog the VMs on that vCenter and choose the ones you want to migrate, you migrate. What's actually going on, it's using virt v2v. You give it a KVM host to execute the migration on, or a set of hosts to execute if you're doing a lot, okay? And that's where the work is going to be performed. It's going off, it's creating the QCal2 image, doing all of the various bits that are necessary. Now, in theory, if the guests are Linux guests, they can be left running, and it will do a sort of live migrate. In practice, I think the general advice, best practice advice seems to be no, instances should be shut down. Okay. Initially, the first version of that had some issues in terms of performance, in terms of doing lots of parallel migrations. That was fixed in 4.19.1, and it's a well-used tool. Also in 4.19 came KVM imports, which is the ability to go out and get an existing set of KVM VMs from somewhere else and just import them into CloudStack. Okay. Obviously, it's not doing as much work as the VMware to KVM migration, but it's still doing quite a lot. Okay, Also, CloudStack DRS came in 4.19. I think the official PR, the PR was actually called CloudStack Simple DRS. It is not as powerful as VMware's DRS, but I think it does what 80% of the people want from DRS, which is to basically, well, that's just a diagram, there we go, to either condense instances into a host or a set of hosts, or to spread instances out across a set of hosts. Okay, so it has two algorithms, balanced and condensed. One is the opposite of the other. You can specify the condensed ratio or the balance ratio, and it can be configured at cluster level or at global level as well. Okay, and we've got people running that comfortably in production now. VNF appliances. Sorry, this really is a whistle stop. Is there a question? Yeah.
I have a question regarding DRS. So you say that DRS is like hypervisor agnostic?
No, it's for KVM only.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we have one VMware, then we still use the DRS from here.
Correct. Yeah, and that's a really good. Sorry, you couldn't probably hear on the recording. The question was, is DRS is that hypervisor agnostic? No, it's not. It's for KVM only. CloudStack tries to be hypervisor agnostic, but it's almost a near impossible thing in terms of having equal. Because if we had an equal feature set across all hypervisors, we'd have a very low feature set. So there are certain things, and that's an example. That's plugging a gap. CloudStack doing something that you can't do with KVM any other way. VNF appliances came in 4.19. By the way, any other questions, just shout them out. I get bored of my own voice sometimes. So VNF appliances, virtual networking functions. So the idea of WAN accelerators, firewalls. You want to sell branded firewalls as a service provider, for example, from Cisco or somebody's Riverbed accelerators, something like that. You've always been able to do this in CloudStack. You've been able to allow your users to spin up an instance, which is a virtual network appliance, but then the plumbing of the network around the edge would be something that would be near impossible for a consumer of CloudStack to do. They can now do that themselves. So you can create templates, and you can also pre-configure those templates with the various networking pieces in terms of what goes on what interface. And then when a user creates one of these, CloudStack will configure those interfaces appropriately. It also knows where the admin entry point is for those VNFs. Okay. At the moment, what it doesn't let you do is use the CloudStack UI to then go and automate and control the VNF, right? It just is giving you a click through into the web interface or whatever of that appliance, or people could connect into it remotely. There's work ongoing to bring that next phase in. And there's an example there. What's going on there? Setting the VNF settings, things like what's going on each interface, etc. You can also put all the user credentials in there, service port, protocol, etc. And then CloudStack will handle all of that, and a user can just create their Riverbed appliance.
Question here. So for the networking, is CloudStack relying all on standard Linux bridges, or it will use some other OVS switch, or maybe some CloudStack proprietary networking stuff?
There's a long answer to that, which we should have over a coffee, if that's okay. It's a 15-minute answer.
Okay.
It's a good question, but it would take 15 minutes. All of the above to a certain extent. And I haven't even talked about CloudStack's standard networking model, which is 99% of what people in this room use. This is almost just an extension, because I'm talking about it because it was new. This isn't describing CloudStack's standard networking model.
So maybe the simpler question to answer would be, what Linux distro you'd advise or you mainly use as a hypervisor?
Another 15-minute answer.
Because the link build for compute would be almost the same in all the distros.
Exactly.
The networking, how you do networking in Red Hat or Ubuntu would be different.
I'll try and do a live demo of why this isn't a simple answer. Okay. Those of you running Ubuntu as a hypervisor? have a look round. Those of you running Rocky as a hypervisor. Okay, RHEL. Oh, interesting. Any others? Alma. Yeah. It's sort of personal preference, what people are happy with. Yeah. libvirt's the important piece there. Okay, also in 4.19 came CloudStack object storage, which was long overdue. So now we can create buckets in CloudStack, or the users can create buckets in CloudStack. And an important thing about this, which is the model that CloudStack's used time and time again, is to keep its scope relatively tight, right? Notice with the VNF piece, we're not trying to do too much in CloudStack. We're trying to back that out. We're trying to sit at the orchestration layer. With backup, for example, we don't try and do. We have a framework which lets people connect backup into CloudStack, and it's exactly the same for object storage. People can use whatever object storage they want. We've got integrations at the moment with MinIO, with Ceph, with Christian. Did you finish? Was yours a back?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was for Pure, right? Yeah. So other people are working on other things. CloudStack just provides the framework for it. CloudStack doesn't have an S3 compliant backup project like some other open source technologies. We just let you use whatever you want for that. But you can now go and create buckets, or a user can go and create buckets. So I've got another picture there. Okay, supports encryption, versioning, locking, policy, etc., etc. It's got a little object viewer, what have you, all through the CloudStack UI. So CloudStack's just keeping its scope tight and just acting as the central point of orchestration. Okay, that was my highlight of what came in 4.19. Moving on to CloudStack 4.20, which was released at the end of last year. That brought, again, a whole load of new features. These are just my personal favourites in terms of what I consider the headlines. ARM64 support. You could always run ARM64 architectures under your hypervisors in CloudStack. You could always do that, but CloudStack wasn't aware of them. It had no concept and allowing users to choose what sort of architecture they want to deploy on, and that's what came with CloudStack 4.20. So when creating an instance, users can now choose between x86 or ARM64. You specify that as an admin when you're creating templates, ISOs, and Kubernetes versions, and then the user can choose what they actually want to, what architecture they want to deploy on. We're seeing, particularly in large cloud operators, a lot of movement towards ARM64 because of the lower power consumption. A lot of them would like to move quicker, but there's certain challenges. But now CloudStack doesn't stand in the way. People can actually specify what architecture they want themselves. And there we go. Adding a cluster. Sorry, I'll specify that. When you create a cluster now, you specify whether that cluster is ARM64 or x386. The logic with that being then when people create instances of one of those types, it's going to be put on that cluster or that cluster. And the user doesn't see that. The user doesn't actually know that that's what's going on. Question from Venko.
When you have different architecture, you need to define a separate cluster, ARM64. But
Correct.
Do you have a dedicated pod, or in the same pod, in the same zone, you can have both?
The same zone, you could have multiple ones. Yeah. Pod, you could have two different clusters. It's just an attribute of a cluster. Okay. Yeah, it's not actually. All it's doing is saying, look, when you create a VM, when you create an instance based on a template that's got this attribute, stick it in that one. It's almost a tag, basically. Okay, shared file systems, another long overdue feature. Think Amazon EFS. Okay, so this is the idea that I just want a file system. I don't want to have to go and create an instance, create a VM, and then put my file system on it and do all of that manually. So this is just like Amazon is, just automating that process. We've got a top level object called a shared file system now. User creates a shared file system. What it's actually doing is creating an instance. It's deploying a file system onto it and giving the user the entry, the mount point for that file system, which they can then use in their other instances. A bit more detail. It's done as a framework. There's a current provider for XFX or ext4, but you could add in other providers. So if you wanted to use Ceph, for example, to provide your file systems, you could do that. Okay. Question?
Like tons of file systems based on Microsoft or Ceph, etc. Can we easily migrate this, manage this through CloudStack if we go and implement CloudStack? So
Can
migrate these parts of infrastructure.
we,
Microsoft. Can we implement this over the CloudStack to manage CloudStack?
can you migrate Microsoft file systems or just a whole load of file systems generally into here? Is the question. Yeah, I don't see why not. I don't have an instant answer about how you would do that, whether you would even need to use this. I need to think it through, but yeah, I don't see why not.
So it's supported to import the existing installation of Ceph clusters to the CloudStack, or do we need to introduce new Ceph clusters and do some other type of...
I have no idea, but there's people in the room who do. Guido, where are you hiding? Yeah, he's popped out. Somebody's going to come and find you at break time. Okay, now this is quite an ironic feature that came in 420. Network overlay NSX, which is a VMware product, actually went in, support for it went into Apache CloudStack 420. It's probably not a lot of interest to many people in this room, but the reason I talk about it is there as a reminder that there are a lot of people using CloudStack with VMware underneath. Okay, it is still a thing. It's still there. They are accelerating as a trend towards moving to other hypervisors, but it's a thing. And there was somebody who wanted that integration, and it went in. I won't go in great detail. There we go. The usage service in CloudStack, again, if you go back to the 101, CloudStack's got a simple usage server which calculates usage, and then CloudStack doesn't understand dollars or pounds or euros. CloudStack understands hours and gigabytes and IP addresses, and then it's up to you to commercialize on top of that. But its usage server was always just a command line thing and a database. Okay, it's now got a UI so it can be managed. That's not a user UI, so they can see what they've used. That's for you to manage, or as admins to manage the usage server. Last one, finally, the virtual router introduced dynamic routing. So that was, again, long overdue. And I can specify the forwarding there, the routes for actually in the virtual router now. Okay, so all of that stuff I've talked about is already there in Apache CloudStack. So there isn't particularly, some of that's sort of over a year old. I'm having a look now at what I see going on in the community, and I expect to be going into CloudStack 4.21. Okay, expect this will not be the definitive list by the time the release candidate is cut. And as an open source project, even though we try and make sure everybody's got feature proposals and they're clearly telling everybody else in the community what they're working on, once somebody says a code freeze is happening, suddenly these features start coming out of the woodwork that people have been working on for months. So that might happen. Okay, and I know something that is significant, which I know is happening, which isn't out there in the public yet. I can't say too much about, but there you go. I'll talk you through that as much as I can in a second. This is the most exciting thing for me: the orchestrate anything. Okay, framework extension. This is some work that Rohit, who I work with, is a concept he's had for about 18 months, and initially he nicknamed this project the mother of all plugin frameworks, right? Now, CloudStack has a lot of plugins. We keep the scope tight, right? We orchestrate other things. But creating a plugin in CloudStack requires you to actually understand CloudStack and to have to build CloudStack. You need to be a CloudStack developer, which isn't an easy on-ramp, okay? So what Rohit's idea was that anybody should be able to, I think at one stage when we were talking about it, he said even Giles should be able to create a CloudStack plugin, right? Is to take that out of the core, the plugin concept, away from the core, remove the fact that they have to be written in Java, okay, and they should be able to be written in anything, okay? And this orchestrate anything is focusing on compute initially, okay? Now we've traditionally had hypervisor plugins for VMware, for KVM, for XenServer, potentially for some other things. They are very big pieces of Java code, right? Which are very complex pieces of Java code. The logic here with this is we've now got the concept of an external hypervisor, okay? Which is a black box as far as CloudStack is concerned. It has expectations. CloudStack has expectations about what happens, what I need back if I send this a deploy command, what I get back if I send this a destroy command. But after that, it's down to the external provider what it actually does with that information. Okay? So the sort of use cases we've got here, and this is where this thinking came from initially, is orchestrating bare metal. So there's a lot of enterprise provisioning systems out there, right? That have an API and you say, all right, go and provision these hosts for me in the data center. And this concept came about, the idea of saying, well, if we've already got this provisioner, but really we'd then like to manage those hosts in CloudStack and bring it all together with CloudStack's networking and everything, we just need to plumb that provisioning system into Apache CloudStack. It's an extensible model. Sorry, I've got some very weird screenshots. Okay, this is an example of an external provisioner. This actually the company that Rohit was working with at the time. It acts as a black box, and you can create that black box in anything you want. Bash, for example, Python, if you want to. And it can go and do anything. As long as it gives the answers, it supports the interface that CloudStack's expecting, and gives it the answers and the data back it wants. It could go and, somebody gave the example, it could go and fire off the kettle and make a cup of coffee and tell CloudStack that it's actually just created an instance for it. Okay? So since this has been around and this has been in the code base, I've seen people who are working on this knock up a Proxmox deployment agent. Sorry, I've used the correct term. External provisioner, a Hyper-V external provisioner. I saw, what's the lightweight one from AWS, the lightweight hypervisor? Somebody help me. Firecracker. Okay, so CloudStack is doing, now it's not going to give the full control in terms of doing things like HA and stuff like that, but deploying life cycle operations, start, stop. It gives basically sysadmins the ability to go and create some scripting, configure it in CloudStack, and manage any sort of compute offering they want. And this is, to me, super exciting. Okay, sorry, some terrible screenshots there. That was one that was a Proxmox, adding Proxmox in to an external thing. So we specified the hypervisor, this is adding a cluster, the hypervisor as external, and then when we configure external, we give it the Proxmox endpoint, which gets passed to the provisioner. Bang, we're orchestrating Proxmox. This is hours of work, right? And the point is anybody can do it. Okay, also in 421, pretty sure it'll be there because it's in main, is integration with Netris. Netris is quite interesting. It's a commercial technology, it's not open source. Automated switch fabric manager for cloud is their headline. Now, we've always had some challenges with networking at scale. When some of the scale that Bobby's going to be talking about later, VLAN obviously have got physical limits involved in terms of how we isolate. We had integration with Tungsten Fabric, which was widely used. Unfortunately, Tungsten Fabric is, as a project, seems to be faltering. A lot of people using VXLAN. We'd be happy to tell you about VXLAN for hours, but that presents some challenges as well and some complexities. Netris is a commercial solution that solves a lot of those problems. And what they do is they talk to the physical fabric. It's not an overlay, not a traditional overlay. They talk to the physical fabric, now tightly integrated with Apache CloudStack. Okay. So you can use Netris as an isolation method. It allows things like AWS Direct Connect, supports VPCs, load balancing, etc. It's an exciting technology. It's a commercial technology. Okay, I think the last one. We've got frameworks for backup and recovery, and we've got frameworks for object storage I was talking about before, but we've never had limits for those things. So even though my backups are being provided by a third-party product, or my object storage is being provided by a third-party product, I can now set limits for both of those things in CloudStack on a per user or per account or per domain basis. There's one more. Instance lease. It's a little feature, but it's quite interesting. When you create an instance, you can now specify you want to lease that instance instead of have it permanently. Okay, so I might lease it for 5 days on a 5-day lease. At the end of that, depending on what the administrator has configured, it will either get stopped or it will get destroyed. But there's a workflow that happens that lets you then start to notify users and what have you. And this was something around sort of, test environments, POC environments, where, this zombie VM concept of having all of these VMs sprawled around that are all costing money. The CloudStack now has the ability to say, no, I'm going to have this one. I only need this for a week. Okay. Now, obviously, that's potentially very dangerous. If you've got an orchestrator which is destroying machines after a set. So there's a lot of controls in this, I understand, in terms of it has to be enabled globally. You have to create explicit service offerings which are leased service offerings. So somebody has to explicitly choose that something's on a lease. And I think I'd found a screenshot. Yeah. Also lots of stuff in the UI showing that stuff is leased and is a slightly different thing. It's not something that a lot of people are going to switch on, but certainly for test environments and things like that, I think that could be quite useful. Okay, something else very significant.
Question, Giles, here?
So my question is, how backup works with CloudStack? For example, if we have VMware, we have KVM, we have Hyper-V. And we have backup implemented in those hypervisor solutions, and everything is supported, everything works, everything is cool. If we put Apache on top of it, do we do backups over the Apache, or backup is still like below?
You can choose any of the above, is the short answer. You could carry on doing what you're doing. CloudStack then has a framework that where you can integrate your backup providers to let your users then control and specify what sort of backup regime they're going on. But the biggest challenge you have in a mixed hypervisor environment is having a vendor that supports all those different at the hypervisor level.
We do have,
yeah. So there's a number of different options.
Okay, so in theory, we can go and play, and if it works over the Apache, Apache would say.
Yeah, because I mean, CloudStack is just the orchestrator, right? You've still got effectively a vCenter with VMware VMs, and you've got KVM VMs. Bobby, you're. Sorry, thank you.
I understand how it works, but what is my concern? If for some reason Apache is not available, we must have backups available.
Yeah.
So it's.
Yeah. What you would probably want to do is to get those existing solutions and integrate them with the CloudStack backup framework, because that then gives you visibility in the UI. So it lets you from CloudStack see that I've got 10 backups for this instance, even though that's on KVM and that's on VMware. But that's almost an option. You could still have your backups in place the way you're doing them already. Okay, something else very significant can't talk about. There is a big feature coming in 4.21 that's to do with a certain type of compute that everybody's talking about at the moment, that CloudStack's been historically not very good at supporting, that I'm told they use in AI workloads a lot. And the people doing this are not being public about it yet. I think it will drop in 4.21, is my understanding. That's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.